Right guys, how's it going? Welcome back. I've recently bought a new car. It's something quite silly. In fact, this is very reckless. This is so unlike me. Let me tell you how it all started. One night in October last year, I had an epiphany. I'd had a few very trying months which completely wore me down. And to be honest with you, I was just completely down with everything. October 21 marked the 6th year anniversary of High Peak Autos, which, as you know, wasn't meant to be a permanent thing. It was just a stopgap for me. I'm not complaining at its success, but it had completely taken over my life. I just felt like a hamster on a wheel. I was totally stuck in a rut. I didn't do anything. I didn't have a life, didn't have a social life, just did the same boring thing every single day of my life. I'm quite an introspective person, so the thought of me just wasting my 6 years really got to me. On top of that, I was carrying too much weight. My clothes were tight, and even the clothes which did fit didn't look good. I was just properly miserable and fed up. And what made matters worse was every morning I'd wake up and I'd get a memory notification on Facebook from 8 or 9 or even 10 years ago. And it would show me younger, more attractive, slimmer. Photos which were taken from my time in my life when I was full of hopes and dreams. And here I was, a 32-year-old podgy car dealer from Stockport. It wasn't exactly how I'd planned my life. I'd taken on too much. I was trying to juggle too many things. I was sick and tired of putting everybody else and everything else ahead of me. I felt like I'd wasted my 20s. Everybody else was out enjoying themselves, probably, and I was at home, struggling, stressing, saving, worrying. It was quite a depressing thought, that, because I just felt like I'd spent most of my 20s. I won't say depressed, because that takes away from people who genuinely suffer from depression, but just properly fed up and stuck in a rut. I didn't want to waste my 30s in the same way. And that's when something just clicked. I realised I was the only person who could change it. So that's what I did. I started getting up at 5 a.m. and going to the gym. I cut out all the bad food I was eating, all the sugary rubbish food, all the cold coffees I was consuming. I stopped getting stressed out about work, which is easier said than done, but it just dawned on me, I'm selling used cars. It's not life or death, is it? Why am I getting so worried and stressed about these things? In the grand scheme of things, it doesn't really matter, does it? I also stopped worrying about things which are out of my control. How can I control the behaviour or the actions of somebody else? On top of that, I even started going out, socialising, drinking, enjoying myself, putting myself first for a change.
Huh? Who would have thought? Not me.
Now here we are 3 months later, and I've lost 2 stone in weight, which is 28 pounds if you're an American, or 12 point something kilos if you're European or Antipodean. It's quite a lot, and I can't tell you how much healthier I feel. I feel happier, healthier, wealthier. I just feel like a different person. I feel 10 years younger. Naturally, I went out on a bit of a shopping spree and treated myself to some new clothes, smaller clothes, and a new smaller belt. I just feel like I've got my confidence back, and I can't tell you how good that feels. I'm full of hope and positivity. I'm no longer stressed or irascible. Apologies for the ramblings, by the way, but I swear they are relevant. Now, buying new clothes just wasn't enough. I felt like the new Matt needed a new car. Something that the old Matt just would never consider. Something loud and obnoxious. Something silly. Something bold and brash. So that's exactly what I went out and bought. Shall I put you out of your misery? Well, here it is. It's this 2016 Mercedes AMG GTS. Now, I've adored these cars ever since I first clapped tyres on one when they were released. In fact, if you recall, in my first Q&A video, I mentioned that one day I'd love one of these cars. I just didn't expect that one day to be quite so soon. My new car search didn't start out with the AMG GT though. I genuinely considered all sorts. My original plan was to sell my Range Rover, which I think is worth about 40 grand, add another 5 or 6 grand to it, and buy myself a nice Bentley Continental GT. That would have ticked all the boxes. It's flashier, sportier, quicker, perfect. Except the more I looked at them, the more I thought, it's still a little bit too sensible, too reserved. I wanted something a little bit more shouty. That's when I started looking at 2016 facelift Bentley Continental GTs, specifically the 4-litre GT V8S. They look more aggressive. And according to all the reviews I watched, they're a little bit sportier too, so I thought that was perfect. But they're about £70,000. I think the Bentley Continental GT is great value for money at the 30 or 40 grand mark, but but at £70,000, it didn't look great value. Don't forget, it's a 2003 design, this. I just thought, do I really want £70,000 in something that looks a little bit dated? I shelved that idea and moved on to other things, and that's when it started to get quite interesting. Now, in no particular order, here's what I considered. Firstly, I considered a Lexus LC500. Now, I love the design of those. I think they're a stunning car. They come with a 5-litre V8, and it'd be reliable. Again, that would be perfect. But something in the back of my mind just kept telling me that I'd look like I'd sold my controlling share in a carpet warehouse on the outskirts of Pontefract. Do you know what I mean? It's got a whiff of the old retired Golfer about it. Then I looked at the BMW 8 Series, again a stunning GT car, but I thought it might look like I owned an IT consultancy firm on the outskirts of Leatherhead. I looked at the S-Class Coupe, specifically the S63 Coupe. Now they're beautiful, I've always loved those, and they're great value. You can pick those up for about 45 grand. But there was just something about it was just a bit too big, cumbersome, clumsy. Now the old Matt would have loved that, but since I've done a Benjamin Button, it just wasn't buttering any parsnips. I looked at Porsche 911s, the 991 series. Now that would literally be the result of a flowchart of my criteria. It'd be perfect. But, as I've mentioned before, they just don't get me giddy. A little bit too clinical and sensible. The Maserati Gran Turismo was another option. They've got a glorious sounding V8 engine, but they're just a little bit too old now to live with every day. The infotainment system's ancient. It was designed back when Mussolini was in power. I consider the Jaguar F-Type R, but I know that harsh ride would just annoy me on a daily basis. I even considered the old XKR. I love those cars, but it's a little bit like a 60-year-old's gift to himself. The Audi R8 seemed a little bit too predictable, and the more I looked at them, they didn't really do much for me. It's not really my cup of tea, that. The BMW i8 was a no-no because I just know I wouldn't get on with it. That high sill and the silly doors would just wind me up. So I was getting really frustrated because there was literally nothing out there that was turning me on. And then all of a sudden, I remembered the AMG GT. You can pick these up now for around 65 grand, which I think is great value. It's half its cost new. For one like this, it's only done 21,000 miles, expect to spend about £70,000. But still, a lot of car for that money. When I got it home, I was going through the paperwork and I did a quick Google search on the previous owner's address. It turns out he's got a swimming pool and tennis courts, so that immediately made me feel better. Makes me think he's looked after it. It's exactly the kind of person you'd want to buy an expensive car from. My plan to sell my Range Rover has also changed because I just know that if I were to use this on a daily basis, I'd end up hating it. The ride's a little bit too firm, it's quite difficult to get in and out of, and it does attract quite a bit of attention. So I think for as long as I can possibly afford them both, I shall keep them both. Use my Range Rover every day, and then when I want to put a big smile on my face, I jump in this. That, unfortunately, guys, means there might be a few more sponsored ads on the channel, but please bear with me. I'm trying to juggle many things. Oh, that is intoxicating. If you follow me on Instagram, at High Peak Autos, you'll have seen this car already because I just couldn't contain my excitement. I shared a picture of it within about an hour of me getting it. As soon as I saw it, I knew I just had to have it. I fell in love with the colour, to be honest. I think it's stunning. So many I looked at were black or grey and they just seemed boring in comparison. I think this is still classy. I've had this car for about 2 weeks now and I can honestly say it's everything I wanted and more. It's a car that immediately makes you feel younger, cooler and more successful, which I know sounds incredibly shallow, but they're nice feelings to have, aren't they? Let's be honest. Oh dear. I don't think I'll ever get bored of looking at it. It's one of the sexiest cars ever made. I love the long muscular bonnet. I love the curvy rear end. Most of all though, I love the noise it makes. I know this car was made to replace the SLS, a sort of modern day interpretation of the 1950s Gullwing SL. And you can see what they've done, but to my mind it looks like a modern interpretation of the E-Type or a Jensen Interceptor. I love it. The other good thing is you hardly see them on the road. They're quite a rare car. In fact, I can't remember the last time I saw one. I'd never driven one of these before, so I didn't know what to expect. I was expecting the ride to be terrible, which is not atrocious to be fair. It's just not as comfortable as a Range Rover. And I was expecting the 7-speed twin-clutch gearbox to be a right pain in the neck, but it isn't. It's actually a really good box. It changes gear in the blink of an eye, and it isn't too clumsy around town. I watched a few reviews on these online before I bought it, and a few of them complained about creaks and rattles, which for a few minutes I thought, can I live with something like that? And I thought, well, who cares? I'll either drown it out with a V8 or drown it out with the excellent Burmester audio system. Life's too short to worry about creaks and rattles from a 4-litre V8 sports car like this. Under the very long and imposing bonnet sits a 4-litre twin-turbocharged V8, which produces 510 horsepower. The standard AMG GT produces about 450. This is the GTS, so it gets extra. There's also a GTR, which produces 575 horsepower, but I thought that would be a little bit too much, a little bit too hardcore. Plus, they're about 20 or 30 grand more expensive, so that was a no-no. Not once have I ever driven this and thought, you know what, I really wish this had an extra 65 horsepower. Not once. This will do 0 to 60 in under 4 seconds. It's the fastest thing I've ever driven. It'll top out at 198 miles an hour. It's incredible. The other good thing is, thanks to its clever traction control and limited slip diff, I've never actually lost control of it. A couple of times I thought I had, but it kind of rights itself, which is quite flattering. I know I've mentioned this already, but can we just talk about the noise for a second? I thought my SL55 sounded good. Well, it does. But this sounds like an SL55 that's spent its life drinking whiskey and smoking cigarettes. In Sport Plus mode, the exhaust valves open up and it gets even louder. That's just ridiculous. It's so theatrical, this car. Such an event. But you can pop it back into comfort mode and all of a sudden it becomes very civilised. I've got comfortable heated leather seats, blind spot monitoring, 2 cup holders even. Everything you could wish for. Unbelievably, there's a mode that's even more hardcore than Sport Plus. That's race mode. Beg your pardon? If you drive it in race mode down Deansgate late one night, the exhaust will pop and crackle. Apparently. When I bought it, it needed a few things doing to it. The 2 front tyres were very close to the legal limit, so I had those replaced. They cost £250 each, in case you were wondering. It needed a new set of wiper blades. It needed an MOT, which is now passed with no advisory items. I've had the rear windows tinted, which I think helps to make it look a bit more stealthy. So cheers, Paul, for that. I've got it booked in next week at SPR in Stockport, who are a Mercedes specialist. They're going to do an engine and gearbox service. The gearbox service is due at 4 years or 4 years or 40,000 miles. This is only done 21, but it is 5 or 6 years old. So I thought I'd get that done anyway. Prevention is better than the cure, as they say. I also need to ask them to look at the tyre pressure monitoring system, because I'm sick of staring at that light. A minute after I reset it, the light comes back on. It's just irritating. TPS is one feature on modern cars that we really could do without. Also, there's a creaking coming from the rear suspension, so I think I'll get them to look at that at the same time. I think I've got a dry bush, said the actress to the bishop. Then I need to get the wheels refurbished because some of them are quite badly curbed, but I think I might leave that for a few months. I think I'll carry on getting to grips with it, see how I get on. It's awesome, this car. Can I just say at this point, thank you to everybody for watching and liking and subscribing, because there's no way I'd be sat in an AMG GT right now if it weren't for you guys. So I do appreciate it, thank you very much. Well, I think that's about it. Thank you once again for watching. Make sure you give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't done already. You can follow me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I'll leave the link below. Check out the Highpeak store. That's www.highpeakstore.co.uk. We've got new deliveries, new key rings and mugs, that sort of thing. So check it out. We've also got a sale on, so don't miss it. Cheers, guys. I'll see you next time.